Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives 2. And tonight we're going to have a two. We're going to have a duo, and that is myself and the great Professor Darrell Hamamoto. And he's brought his cultural forensics with us with himself tonight. It got a whole pocket full of cultural forensics with him tonight, I'll bet. Is that right, Professor?
Absolutely. It's great to be with you here, John. And after you announced, I think it was last week, the publication of your book,
Yeah.
I ordered it right away. I haven't got it yet. They said 10 days, so any day now.
Oh well, I'm flattered because I was just thrilled with your presentation at the June 6th event. And I've just spoken to, I had videographers there, and we're doing post-production now. We're going to put together a nice little video presentation from the June 6th event. And here's the book itself. This is the 6x9 version. And we also had the nice big 11-inch version that Andy DeBala published for us back in June. But the only one you can get now, if you want to get one, you can get it by Kindle, or you can get it just like this from Amazon. And yeah, well, I'm glad you ordered it. I mean, it's the work of my lifetime, really. It's only about 75 pages, but uh, everything that's in there is represents, dozens and dozens of hours of research and work. And I do believe what I said a long time ago, Professor, and that is that if people will study and understand my dad's life, then you will be able to open the keys to understand how we got into this mess that we're in right now. This horrible, horrible mess with all these layers of deception and things going on that we can't understand. We don't understand why things happen the way they do. Well, why did Andrew Cuomo put all those COVID cases into a nursing home where the old people are vulnerable? I mean, well, we hear stories where he said, well, he did it because of this or because of that, but so many things we just don't know why, and when we've got to peel back the layers. That's what
Mhm.
I'm doing best that I can. You are George Webb, of course, is a great leader in that, and we do miss George tonight, but these things happen. He's got so many things going on. Very, very busy guy. So we wish George well tonight, whatever he's up to. And
Mhm.
Professor, what do you think we should be talking about tonight? What's been on
Well,
your mind?
well, first of all, let me just continue on your observations there. I think the authorship of this book, it just proves once again that the power of biography, of autobiography, uh, because it really brings to bear all these different historical and political currents in a manner that's very personal, right? It's
Hmm.
really different than starting from the macro level instead of the history and then trying to apply it to your life. But it's very effective when that's why I'm a biography freak and I love yours too. It's an incredible approach. And secondly, we must remember that I know you did a lot of background research and reading on your own and a lot of prep work behind the scenes, but a lot of the material that made it into your book was laid out or came to light in real time in the public. And that's really unusual in the history of publishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as much as we have difficulties with TubeU and these other platforms, they do have their advantages. And if we exploit them correctly, I think we'll come out ahead. So today I'm not going to use the V word because I think they're going through another phase of repression and censorship. However, that presents opportunities. We can accomplish the same sort of critical perspective dealing with the current crisis by going back into history to another type of epidemic, and that's the polio crisis that we're the same age, so I don't know about you, but we were herded into the auditorium,
Hmm.
and you know what, right? um, and we know the story about Dr. Mary's monkey, but what I wanted to bring to the discussion here, And I think it's more than, so far as I'm concerned, it's more than hypothetical at this point. I came across a really incredible article, and I'll send it to you, John. I'll post it on my Patreon as well. But the title is Poliomyelitis and the Electromagnetic Fields, right? So this, yeah. Did you ever hear this argument, John?
I've started to get wind of the idea. For instance, the suggestion that before World War One, there wasn't any electromagnetic radiation because there was so little use of radio. And then after World War One, the explosion in radio has just increased the amount of EMF that's going through everybody, and now we've got the TV on top of that. Well, does that have a health effect?
No, no, no. You're familiar with the thesis, and this person who wrote this, his name is Vincent Lauer, Lauer. The article doesn't show his affiliation, but this guy is a top-notch scientist. This is not speculation. He's got empirical data, and he's got cross-national data from Scandinavian countries, Sweden and Denmark, I believe it is, and Italy, which is the home of radio, right, Marconi, and then the United States. Oh, there it is.
You talk by the
Andy.
magic of Andy DeBala.
He
Thank
is
you, Andy.
he is the fastest mouse in Temperance, Michigan, if not the entire continental USA. That's the article. Yes, I think you can get it, ladies and gentlemen, online. And you can see that it's on Solid Science. And he concludes that that there is a correlation. And
Wow.
yeah. And there's one element that this article doesn't cover. And John, you didn't mention it either, and it's the most apparent one that we're being exposed to, and that's the Wi-Fi, and that's 5G, right?
Yeah.
Because that's on that same continuum. He's got an analytical argument here. I'll just skip to the conclusion really quick, the analysis of it, the thesis. He concludes. He has two conclusions. One, the main one, A, says the emergence of epidemic poliomyelitis was triggered by the onset of artificial electromagnetic waves, including wireless telegraph and wireless voice transmission, and probably including wired telephony. So you're right, John.
Well, maybe. The where's the polio now? We've got more EMF than we ever had before, I'm sure, but I don't see polio. So what happened?
Well, he does attribute the vaccine, the polio vaccine, as mitigating it. But his argument was that it never was a epidemic until the onset of waves. It was an annual occurrence in certain communities, right? And it wasn't distributed everywhere. But after radio, that's when it really triggered. It went into, abeyance, I guess, because of the vaccines. But then there are other novel ones. He mentions HIV/AIDS as being one possibility here. But I'm thinking if we extrapolate from this particular set of conclusions, that we must be vigilant and really explore. And there's a lot of literature on this. It's not just, it's past the exploration point. We must look at the possibilities of EMF as being a very important causal agent in what we're seeing now. It's not just through the you-know-whats, but there's a whole ambient environment. I think it's global in nature, right? That we're being exposed to. So anyway, this is something I think we need to explore, because we're all focused on the various companies and big pharma that are behind the situation, whatever people's stance on it might be. But at the same time, we're neglecting something equally, maybe even more important than the big pharma people. Maybe we should be looking at Comcast or Crown Castle or some of the telecoms they've been using the crisis in order to install these technologies in schools, for example, while they're all vacated. They've been burning down certain communities in the far west and northwest in particular, And rather than rebuilding the community, what are they doing? They're putting in these tech. I mean, these are eyewitness saying, "Well, what are you doing here? We just had a community that was routed, and you're putting in these new technologies." Well, any number of eyewitness reports and anomalies are coming in from all over the country and all over the world. And some of it are anecdotal, but a lot of it has been subjected to scientific study, like this gentleman here, Lauer.
That's good because we really do need the people that can serve as expert witnesses. From my point of view, it's a forensic problem, meaning how do you prove it? And
Mm-hmm.
that for me, it comes down to expert testimony, because
Right.
there's no way you can just take a picture of it or hand it to a jury and say, here, look at this.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody that understands it and can sell it to a reasonable person, or to a jury. But first of all, you got to convince me, as a
Absolutely.
lawyer, to say, you want me to sell this to a jury, I want you to sell it to me first. And I'm still looking.
Okay.
I've spent it. It's kind of like my research into whatever you want to call it, chemtrails, or the extended contrails that don't seem to go away up in the sky, and the effect of that on weather. I've done a lot of reading. I spent a lot of time with uh, uh, one of the books that is called Chemtrails Exposed. I've got it handy here, and I I still don't feel that there is any mainstream scientists that are going to step forward and say, "Yeah, this is right. This is really happening." On the other hand, statements like from Tesla himself saying, if you want to understand the future, study waves. If
Mm-hmm.
you want to
Mm-hmm.
understand, what's going on in the world, study waves, you know, the behavior of waves. And this, of course, is effective in so many different parts of life. For instance, is it part of cancer? Is it something that, if you have a particular virus or part of a virus in you that is dormant, but a certain frequency is emitted that happens to turn that thing on, to make it vibrate, does that somehow activate the cancer and cause you then to get sick and die?
Mm-hmm.
And is that, for one, on the one hand, we've got this environmental problem of these EMFs are everywhere, but more more focused is we have the weaponization of this type of technique, where we know that they're using microwaves to debilitate people. They've got entire plans of how to do crowd control by just sending microwave energy into them, and at a certain point, it causes their skin to burn, or to cause them to be unable to move. So if you need crowd control, microwaves are your friend, and they know that. They've got trucks that they can drive around with microwave guns on them, and it's real,
Mm-hmm.
as a weapon, but it's also this general environmental question of when did we ever give permission to send microwaves through our bodies on a daily basis, or any type of radiation? They just do it, and that is part of what's the sickness of our country, really, is that
Mm-hmm.
our government does not respond to the people. It doesn't even ask us for permission to do things anymore. It just, I'm still wondering, who said that it's a good thing to put plastic everywhere? Who decided that plastic was the best material put, shield your house with vinyl, I mean, all of these crazy decisions are made, but we don't have a voice in it anymore, and
Yeah.
that puts us in danger in so many different ways. So, for instance, a vinyl siding will just go up like a fireworks, so if it catches fire.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't think about that. The fire marshal doesn't have a voice anymore to say, "Hey, you shouldn't use that building material,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's cheaper, so people use it.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big problem, that we have all of our society is unregulated at this point, and from the exposing danger to our old people, to exposing our children to dangerous things that they'll become habituated at, or even just all of the time they spend sitting there looking at a computer screen. Not that I'm any better. I'm sitting here looking at a computer screen as I say that. Um, okay, I've gone off too far. So your turn.
Oh, no, no. No, that's beautiful. You nailed it. Your earlier observation, the phrase was, I believe, who gave these people permission, right?
Right.
In our name. Okay. Permission or consent, let's say. And I just had this insight. It's in the name of the organization that all the marbles are in, they're in possession of them. We surrendered not we, the contractees surrendered American sovereignty in our name to what? The North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's the treaty. That is what subverted the American Republic. It's been hidden in plain sight all this time. It's not legislation. It's not the US Constitution. It's not even natural law. It is a treaty amongst parties who managed to agree how to parse or divide the world and its frequencies and its spectra amongst themselves, leaving us out of the discussion. So on that basis alone, you as an attorney, John, can attack this whole conceptual as well as the empirical reality of treaty relationships and obligations. How was Native American conquered? Yes, we know about the kinetic warfare, the bullets and the smallpox, and that history, as awful as it is. But what really stole the sovereignty from Native American were what? Treaties. Treaties. So where are all these brilliant people at the law schools who are specialists in Indian law or in treaties? Where are any of these people in the law schools who are who focus on civil liberties? They're nowhere to be seen. So, John, we cannot appeal or depend on any of the so-called experts. We as citizen investigators, writers, journalists, biographers, it's on us. And I think you and I both, we welcome the challenge because we're doing it.
You're damn right we are, and we have to do it, and because nobody else is going to do it. You mentioned people, civil rights advocates, but what happens to them is they get swept up in college and law school. Like in when I was at Georgetown, they had La Raza, and they had the what's the alternate lawyer society? I can't remember it.
The National Lawyers Guild.
National Lawyers Guild. They had all these various groups, and once you get into something like that, then you're committed ideologically to one side of the battle. And unfortunately, the American Civil Liberties Union, this is what they do. They set up something that you think, oh, well, they're going to protect our civil liberties. It's
Yeah.
the American Civil Liberties Union. Oh, well, I can kick back now, buddy. I got no problems because we got the best lawyers. They're down there. They're working their butts off, burning the midnight oil for, just for the right to defend our liberties. No, they came out and said that it's better for liberty to force people to take the jab, because then people that don't know whether everybody around them has had the jab or not won't have to worry about whether the people around them have had the jab or not. And so they'll be more free because they won't be worrying about whether that person over there, is going to cause them to. All right. So that's the ridiculousness of it is you have the profession of protecting individual rights. But then what happens is that gets converted into a kind of a general idea of protecting rights generally. And in order to protect rights generally, you have to cull some of the ones off that really, you don't like them anyway. So why do they need rights? Let's just get rid of them. the ones that don't want to take the jab, for instance, well, they don't really need rights because I mean, they're just going to be sitting in their cubby holes watching Netflix anyway. Why do they need rights? Take them away. And while you're at it, get the men in the white coats to take them away and put them in one of those re-education camps that they're building. It is truly a horrific time to be alive because we're sitting here thinking, our freedoms are just going away right in front of us, just like happens in anticipation of war, of World War II, of the Nazis, of all of the horrors and terrors that have happened in the past. If they, keep on clamping down the way they seem to be, then they're going to start something. Something will get started, and
Sure.
and chaos will reign. And
Mhm.
of course, that's the whole idea of the phoenix. Is the phoenix is what comes up out of the ashes after the chaos has reigned. And
Mhm.
they are trying to start it. They're trying to start something so that we'll burn everything down for them, and then they can come in and rebuild it in their own image, just like the stained glass window of the Fabian Society that's in the London School of Economics. London School of Economics is the London School of Fascist Economics. That's what that place is. And they don't have anything to do with trying to help everybody, to eat or be healthy or have a good job or take care of their kids. They don't care about that. They want to know whether the best way to rip everybody off is through a fake financial system with fiat currency, like they've pushed us into now, which is the way of Paul Krugman and Keynes and all that,
Mhm.
as opposed to the other way, which is to just starve everybody. Just say no, you can't have anything. We're not going to give you any money. We're not going to give you any credit. We're not going to give you anything, and you can just go pound sand until you die. There are two ways to rip off the population. One of them is the fake economic scam that we've been perpetrating on that the Fed Reserve has done to us right now, and we're stuck right in the middle of that. Or to just plain say no, to just starve us. You can't have anything. We got the guns, and you don't have any. So that's where we're at right now. The citizens still have guns, and
Mhm.
I'm not a person that advocates using guns. I don't have a gun. I don't want a gun. I don't want to be involved in anything that has to do with guns or gunfights or any of that. On the other hand, you know, the the Second Amendment itself says, that the security of a free state depends upon a well-regulated militia. So that's as clear as anybody could ever make it. If you don't believe in the right of citizens to defend themselves against abuse, either by foreign power or by their own government,
Mhm.
then you don't understand the American system. And that's what we're fighting to keep right now is our rights as guaranteed to us by the Constitution and earned for us by our forefathers and foremothers that made so many sacrifices just so we could sit here and have this conversation.
Mhm. Well, John, if you may allow me a mini rant, and I'll keep it short. But you mentioned, the ACLU, the
Yeah.
American Civil Liberties Union, but just as point of fact, it's history. The so-called American Civil Liberties Union did not want to extend its professional services or its lawyerly skills to the Japanese American community during World War II. They
Mm,
said, let them go to camp because they're not really Americans. So
mm,
what they're doing today, turning their back, turning against the American people today, is true to form of the American Civil Liberties Union. I never believed them. I never thought they had any credibility. And third, I would never give any of my sovereignty or lay back and let them do the job because historically they've always been bums and they will always be bums. The, back to your point, it's really on us, John, to do the job. And it can be done. It can be done. Can I draw an example from our personal history? Do you remember when we were just finishing up college and that movie Silkwood came out.
Mm.
Did you see that one?
I didn't see it. No.
You know, it's starring Meryl Streep and Cher of all people. That's when I changed my impression of Cher. Before I thought it was Sonny and Cher. I said, "Wow, she's a really
But,
good actress."
but remind me the plot. What was that?
Yes, well, it was the movie version of a Rolling. This is before Rolling Stone became a globalist mouthpiece. This is in the days when Jan Wenner was still exerting editorial influence, if not control. But there was an article that appeared in Rolling Stone in 1975, I believe, that talked about the mysterious death, and I think she was killed, of one Karen Gay Silkwood, who was, well, I don't like to use the word whistleblower, but she took notes and she had documented all the goings on at the Kerr-McGee plutonium processing plant outside of Oklahoma City. And there's this really good book that talks about it. It even alludes to what a lot of what George has been talking about so far is absconding with an underground exfiltration of radioactive material, including yellow cake uranium. But anyway, she was killed. Her Honda Civic was run off the road in 1974, just as she was going to meet a New York Times reporter before the New York Times itself became a globalist banker mouthpiece outlet. And from there, and this is when journalism was still okay, right? From there, any number of investigative journalists, including this guy named, I forgot his first name, his last name's Cohn, Kohn, they went in and investigated. Mike Nichols, the great director, right? He was also a comedian with Elaine May in the 1950s. The great director, Mike Nichols, teamed up with Nora Ephron, the woman who wrote When Harry Met Sally, right? Her parents were also kind of like New York intellectual screenwriters in Hollywood. Same with Nora Ephron, who grew up in Beverly Hills, right? In privilege. But they combined their talents to come up with this Academy Award-winning movie, Silkwood. And it created an entire social movement John called the No Nukes movement.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a concert shortly thereafter organized by the great Jackson Browne. And all the LA leftists were there. Graham Nash and Bonnie Raitt, all these individuals. So for those who are in the conservative circles, let's remind ourselves of the fact that the people on the left, including the Bernie Sanders type people, have been very important in preserving American civil liberties. So we don't need to have that division between Bernie versus Trump versus Democrat versus Republican. The point is this movement got underway, and here's the good news, John. Since you're an attorney, they used, after she was killed, her parents sued Kerr-McGee for wrongful death. And they brought in lawyers, real ones, not your Lynn Woods, but people like Jerry Spence. Mm-hmm. Lynn Wood is trying to channel Jerry Spence, right? And he was equally flamboyant with his buckskin fringe jacket, right? Jerry Spence.
Oh, yeah. Spence was flamboyant, all right, but he was a hell of a trial lawyer.
Yeah, he was very, very effective. This is in the old days before, they were still kind of Wild West, right? And then the other attorney he had was Daniel Sheehan, who I met at a conference at one point. And here's the good news. And I'm trying to remind people of our history here, because there is hope, even in the most darkest hour of the American Republic right now, is that they sued Kerr-McGee. They won. They prevailed. This team of Jerry Spence and Daniel Sheehan and the other attorneys, and they prevailed. They got a $10 million settlement. Of course, Karen Silkwood herself died, but her survivors, including her family, were able to gain some form of justice. But beyond that, it went on appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. And again, they prevailed, and they established the fact that states cannot make rules and laws governing these types of utilities, nuclear power, so-called. That resides in the hands of the federal government and the AEC, the Atomic Energy Commission. However, as it's stated in this one book that I read And I gave this talk earlier this week. If anybody cares to look on my channel, it's archived there. Um, it turns out, and we know this from the reporting of George Webb, is that the AEC is both an advocate for nuclear energy, but also its regulator.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, the CDC, they're like a conflict of interest, right? There you go.
But
Name
the
was going there.
Food and
Now, the
Drug.
good news, the kicker is that the last nuclear energy, so-called energy plant has been decommissioned in the state of California, Diablo Canyon, as a result of the action of a 100-pound woman who died at age 28 for us. So that era, at least in California, of nuclear energy is over, and people thought it was going to be a done deal because of the power of the AEC and PG&E and the lobbyists in DC. So it can be done. It has been done.
Well, what are you going to do for power?
You've heard of. You've already mentioned the name Nikola Tesla, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, is he gonna wire you into the
Yeah,
universe?
yeah.
Free energy.
Free. Yeah, yeah. There it is. Earth battery.
All right, send me some.
All right. Well, the principle is demonstrated, any number of articles. But this is where it might get a little woo woo for people. But there are these telluric currents across North America. And George Webb was there not that long ago down in La Jolla. That's one of the beginning points in the entire North American continent of these telluric currents. And the people in mining, geology, and oil exploration have the best research on it. So it's not woo woo because there's big money in it, right? This
Yeah.
is evidence based woo woo.
I know there's a lot of woo-woo out there that is being concealed from us.
Yeah.
Whether that one, uh, but so many other things. And I file it under the Majestic 12 category that, after World War II, there was a committee of people that the government got together to say, hey, look at all this secret wiki-wacky stuff we've got now out of the war. If we let the common people have it, then, oh my goodness, all of our power companies will no longer be making all that money for us, and people will be able to do things on their own that they can't do without our power now. And so we better suppress all this stuff. But I think, if not what you're talking about, then there are many other solutions that have been suppressed. And it really is going to take a change in our government, what not necessarily the structure, but certainly the people that occupy it, and with their attitudes of hey, stop hiding all this stuff from us. We earned it. Our parents earned it. Our grandparents earned it. Our generations earned it. Our this is our legacy. That it's not doesn't belong to you, corporations that just happen to shift some paper from one pocket to another one day and got rich. No, the people that own this stuff are the people that earned it, and with their blood and their lives and their sweat and their toil, and their prayers and their patriotism over these 250 years. It's not conceivable that we would let that go. We're not going to let it go. So let's open up the vaults. Let's turn over the file cabinets. Let's kick open these chests of knowledge that have been hidden from us, and let us get back to being, the full American citizens. People, one of the reasons that people don't get involved because they don't have any way to make a difference anymore. It's like I was talking to Amber Connor. She's a very active person in her neighborhood. She's politically astute. She talks to all the important people, and she tells them how she feels about things in no uncertain terms. And she is, to me, an ideal citizen, the kind of people that we should all hope to be. And I'm very proud to know Amber Connor. But one of the things, and I said, well, what about the school board? And she said, have you ever been to a school board meeting? And I think I may have been to one, but I just got this picture in my mind immediately of a half a dozen people sitting around, all of them bored, um, number of them having a particular axe to grind that's going to be boring for the rest of them, but they've got to spend that hour there sitting together. In other words, it doesn't seem to be an effective way to spend your time to go and join the local school board. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. I might very well be wrong, but I'm just talking about seams. I'm talking about appearances here. You
Mhm.
know, maybe if I joined the Charles County School Board, I'd find myself enriched in a way that I couldn't anticipate. But I kind of doubt it. I think it
Mhm.
would be tedious. The ways that we try to engage people in our government are as volunteers. But people don't have that kind of time that you can just go volunteer and be on the animal control board, for free. And yet, that's what they do. So you end up with people that are uh, willing to do it, but most people are not. Most people are thinking it's too important for me to get my daily stuff done. I've got too much going on. I've got to take the kids to school. All of these things. Our citizenship has to be reinvigorated. And the way to reinvigorate it is the hope of a better life, the hope of a better life that can come from the freeing of us from these limits on our technology. The story about people using vegetable oil to fuel cars, 20 years ago was real. People were doing that. They were going around to the McDonald's, getting the oil from the French fryers and
Mhm.
running their Volkswagens with it. And that was shut down like, nobody's business. You don't even need to hear about that anymore. Why? Because it was threatening to the powers that be. What if we all decided to save our cooking oil and instead of burning gasoline that we had to buy, imported from Saudi Arabia, that we were just using some useless oil that we didn't need anyway. And you know, how in the world are the oil companies going to profit off of that? So that got shut down, and this is just an example that I just pull off the top of my head, but you can't make any money by inventing anything anymore. You can't make any money by being more efficient or by coming up with a better mousetrap. They've probably got patents on mousetraps that have been created by DARPA, that are filed away just to make sure that nobody else ever comes up with a mousetrap that could make any money. I'm serious. They are
Mhm.
trying to make sure that we no, they don't even want us to think that we can invent things. They want us to just think that we're just here to do what we're told for this 24 hours and get a night's sleep and do it again tomorrow. And they're trying to turn us into zombie-like serfs. And God damn it, we're not going to let them do it.
Oh, good. I'm glad you added that last part
Yeah.
because you were painting a really dark and
Well, yeah,
depressing
because that's what
picture, John.
they're doing, man.
Huh?
That's what they're trying to do. They're
Oh,
trying to
yeah, yeah.
turn us they're to turn off the mind, don't use your reason. You can't figure it out anyway. It's too complicated. So just,
Mhm.
here, smoke some of this and relax.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I read and see, and I've even talked to some people about, well, generically they call it homeschooling, but a lot of people are recognizing that, hey, now we don't really need a school board because we don't need a so-called public school.
Uh,
They realize that. And really, that's true. You only need a formal education up to the point where you can do basic computation and reading, your alphabet. And after that, you can study on your own, and as well as engage in your own business, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be large scale. And the irony is that as the corporations shed workers and as they downsize, and they're all the techno coolies that are working for Pinterest or Google or Facebook now, they're on their way out as well, right? That's what happens to all coolie laborers. Once the railroad track is laid out, then you're no longer necessary. But there's all that talent there, all that creativity, and I see a renaissance in America because of people's awareness that there's no loyalty between these entities called corporations and the worker, and that there's an awareness that labor unions are corrupt and are meaningless, including the teachers unions, which are one of the most anti-democratic, ironically, institutions in the United States of America. So whoever's the next president, you know, I think that one of the main planks for their election or even reelection would be to decertify all the teachers unions and start
Oh,
over again. Just
oh
like
boy,
remember Patco?
you're going to get lynched, man.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
all the Democratic operatives, that's their bread and butter. But
yeah,
Ronald Reagan did it. I'm not a big fan of Reagan. Remember the Patco, the air controllers union?
yeah. I was totally against Reagan doing that. Of course, we all hated Reagan then anyway. That was my hippie days. You
Same
know.
same
Yeah,
with me.
yeah.
I thought that was awful, but
Oh, I thought if Reagan ever got elected president, I was going to Canada. I was no doubt I was going. You know, but then he got elected, and I didn't go.
he got elected and he was almost killed so
Yeah.
that he is vice president. That's a really bad choice of putting a Bush as vice president. Well, you know the rest of the story, and he really didn't have a second term. From what I read of his biography by Kitty Kelly, it was really Nancy Reagan who was the president for the second term.
Yeah, that makes about as much sense as, as Joe Biden being president. Um,
Right.
it's all about getting somebody that's electable and that they can, cover their gaffes. They've somehow figured out how to cover up the gaffes, and as long as the person's electable, they don't care if they're smart or not, because these people are puppets.
Presidential Puppetry, one of the speakers at your father's memorial service.
Andy
Great book. Great book.
Andrew Craig, and why should we question it anymore? It's proven. Do you think that the next president's not going to be a puppet? No, it doesn't matter. If it's a Republican or a Democrat, they're puppets.
Right.
Always going to be puppets until the system is reverted to the original American constitutional system. But
Mhm.
that's where we've gotten subverted, and you can start where you want to. I start with the Kennedy assassination. I say that's the watershed for me. That's when the coup, that was a coup d'etat that changed the government, and the government we've had since then has not been the government that was created by the Constitution, although it has the form and the structure, but the intent, the workings behind the scene has all been corrupted. And that's because of the assassination was not just the assassination of one man, it was the assassination of our government. It was a coup d'etat.
Very much so. Len Kolodny called it the silent coup. But even then, because of research, journalists, researchers, and even a smattering of academics, they dug into it. And they've been researching it for decades. Now the problem is, it's kind of like scientists and engineers. They do great work. Don't get me wrong. Scientists and engineers for 9/11 truth. How long are we going to be arguing about the science? And about, oh yeah, good backs, bad backs, blah blah, just on it, just sort of the Dell Big Tree type of approach. All that does is just suck oxygen out of us discussions that should be centered around solutions, whether they be local. In the case of, let's say, the example of that you use, Amber Connor, with the school board, statewide, as in the case of Karen Silkwood and the whole no nukes anti-nuclear process, or on the federal level, or even international cooperation, with trying to curtail, if not eliminate the threat to world peace that ironically goes under the name of the United Nations.
Yeah, there's no question in my mind that the United Nations was created in order to kind of Nazify the whole world. The Nazi ideal of having everybody working under the same system, but that everybody is really is owned by the system.
Mhm.
In other words, the state controls you. The state controls your body, and that is one of the essential differences between America and all of the governments that came before it. Because all the governments before that would tell you the same thing, that your duty is to the king. It's like
Mhm.
the quote from Henry V. He says, he says, a man's duty is the king's, but his soul's his own. So
Mhm.
you are, as a subject of any emperor or any king or any European power, you don't own your body. And that's what we're fighting about right now, is who owns my body. Do I own my body? If I do, then you guys go away with your little sharp implement that you want to stick in me, because it's my body and you can't do that. But if the state owns my body, then I just, as they say, roll up your sleeve and bend over.
And grab your ankles while you're at it.
Exactly.
Now, John, let me ask you, a decade ago, would you ever use the phrase the United Nations and Nazification in the same sentence?
No, no, that's about how long it's taken me. As I've said many times, I was a very devoted Obama voter in 2008. Worked hard for him. Was That was the high point of my liberalism, was that I really, when George W. Bush got on that Marine helicopter and I was down in the mall, and we saw that helicopter take off, we thought that, hallelujah, the the horrible times are over. We're going to get some freedom, and
Mhm.
that's what Obama ran on, was hope. Don't hope was, it just said on the sign. There's a picture of Obama, it said hope. Okay,
Instead
well,
of Coke, it said hope, right?
yeah, and I said, okay, I'm with you. I'm going to work for you, and I did. But they were going to close Gitmo, right? Well, they
Yeah.
didn't close Gitmo. Well, why not? Aren't you the president? Doesn't it say president, in front of your name now? Which is, don't you have the right to control the military? Can't you tell them what to do? No, puppet. He's another
Yeah.
puppet. He
And
just
he
turned out to be
made
another puppet.
and he made war on brown people around the world like no
Yeah,
other president before him. That's the
great
whole
cover, isn't it?
beauty. Oh, it's a ethnic cover, as I call it. Not to mention the fact that he's serving another term currently from his mansion in Colorama.
Mm,
He's still the dark part of the dark hand. He's one of the fingers on the dark hand. I think it's the middle finger.
he might be. I haven't heard his name much, but that might be because he's busy. We don't hear from Podesta anymore either, and I just wonder what's Podesta up to.
Yeah, him and his evil twin.
Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
Madeline McCann. I wonder if they'll ever find what happened to her.
Yeah, well, I saw those drawings too, and also I think it was the grandnephew or nephew Lucian Freud, who was a artist, British English artist and all
Mm,
that. But we know where Rahm Emanuel is. He's revving his automobiles in the streets of Kasumigaseki in Tokyo as the new ambassador. What kind of
nice.
dealings is he up to over there?
Well, I am sure that it involves some revving of engines. Rum,
Or nuclear energy plants, right?
rum, rum. Yeah, yeah. That's it. The
Yeah, I don't know.
gun your engine if you're a drug dealer for Rom.
As you're talking about your, I assume it's you had a serious disenchantment with the Democratic Party and Obama after that. I'm trying to, as you're saying that, I can't really remember where I got off the sort of electoral politics wagon. I hadn't voted for years until Trump ran, and it was mostly because he was a disruptor that I supported him. He did make some strides, but it's mostly because he was not Hillary Clinton. But just thinking back, I think by the time Reagan rolled around and the attempted assassination there, I mean, I didn't vote for him. I think I was out of electoral politics by then. I had no illusions about what the American political system was by that time. I think by the early '80s, I was following it, but I wasn't I wasn't supporting, and that includes progressive politics. I had no illusion that a Bernie Sanders could make a difference, for example. I went to Jesse Jackson presidential rallies. In person, I went there because you might not remember, but he ran for president once or twice under the Rainbow Coalition.
Oh yeah. He
And
was
that
another
was
one of those give hope, keep hope alive, keep hope alive.
keep hope alive. And then Obama cut it a little bit and said, hope.
Yeah.
And
And,
then
and now
Jackson
we
was
call it
so
hopium.
angry.
And
Pardon
now we
me?
call it hopium
We call it hopium addiction. Yeah,
because that's what puppets have to offer. You
right.
know,
So
they
I
don't have
guess I'd have
to
to
read.
say I have to confess my last time I was excited about a presidential candidate was Jesse Jackson Sr.
Oh boy. Well,
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, but I I think you dodged a bullet there. He's
Yeah.
because I don't know, but it seems to me very likely that he was kind of an insider for the FBI or somebody like that in the Martin Luther King camp.
I
It just
wanted to ask you about that.
I
What's your
met him. I met Jesse Jackson once and shook his hand, but I honestly, I don't know, but I'm just so suspicious of people that were close to Martin, and we still haven't had the truth told. I mean, I know there was that jury trial in which it was found that there was a conspiracy, and it wasn't James Earl Ray, which is
Mhm.
Tupper Saucer's. Tupper Saucy's other book is called Tennessee Waltz, about the framing and fake evidence used to convict James Earl Ray of that murder, which clearly was orchestrated by the FBI. Um,
Mhm.
and I think Jackson was in on it, but maybe I can't prove it.
John, are we going to do a complete show dedicated to the work of Tupper Saucy?
I am looking forward to it.
Rulers of Evil, Rulers of
Well,
Evil.
I am working my way through it once again. I
Mhm.
on my channel I have now read two uh, two nights of the book with comments, and I will include I will be doing it at least once a week. The book is about 300 pages long, so I'm gonna get through the whole thing. I'll skip some of it,
Okay.
but I think it's beneficial to everybody that I do read the whole thing onto the show. So
Mhm.
that's what I plan to do, and so it'll probably be a month or so before I've got all that done and we can sit down and summarize it together. I know you've already read the book, but
Yeah.
I read it 8 years ago, and I was impressed, but I didn't have the background that I have now to make me
Mhm.
feel comfortable with it. Yeah, don't even try to get it with hardcover, but it's free. You can read Rulers of Evil free. Just Google it, and
It's a PDF free.
it's a free PDF. Don't pay for it. Just just read it. I mean, you're not going to spend $212 to get a hardcover, but I don't know. I don't know what the ethics of it is, but to me, the book's been on PDF, offered free from a number of sources, so I think it's fair enough to just read it.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Now, the
it's
reason
really
I ask
really
is,
covered so many important of historical themes that I think it's worthwhile.
the reason I ask is I put Tupper Saucy up there with other great Americans who are truth seekers. Uh, yes, George Webb, we know that, right? We don't have to, belabor that. That's obvious. But um, Karen Silkwood, going to the top of this conversation.
Mhm.
These are individuals that did not go into these areas as their first choice. They had other careers going. Karen Silkwood is a brilliant inspector. She had no idea that she was going to become a figurehead of a giant movement. Tupper Saucy was just sort of a polymath genius who was a musician,
I didn't
right?
even know that until you told me.
Yeah, he wasn't
Yeah,
an author, but he
I
got
just
thrown in prison by the IRS, the
yeah,
Internal Revenue Service, and he
yep,
had 18 months there to really study the true American history, and that's what Rulers of Evil is all about.
yeah. and he's a great writer. So
My
anyway,
gosh.
enjoy the first two parts of it if you haven't yet. It's on it's on screamingospreys.com, as well as on my YouTube playlist at McDuff Lives 2 TWO.
And when Andy flashed that order form, Amazon, showing how much the Tupper Saucy book, the hard copy, $200,
Yeah.
that should be an omen to you that you better buy George's book. You better pre-order it and get the Bavaria 911. But the other one is in process. I pre-ordered it as well because it's going to be up there, maybe beyond, if you're lucky, if you can find it at all.
Well, and Andy DeBala has been fantastic about printing books for George. He's 12, 16 hours a day working away. So definitely do it to educate yourself, and do it to support Neighborhood News Studio, and help them with their expenses up there. Well,
Absolutely.
Professor, it's been a great hour for me. It's gone by quickly. Tomorrow night you may be interested, if you're available. I'll be talking to Richard Freeman of the Schiller Institute about Haiti, and to try to come up with some common themes of, America owes Haiti a lot. I think we can agree on that Haiti has gotten a very, very bad deal, and mainly because of our foreign policy. And we're from day one, we have not been friends to Haiti, and we need to be. So tomorrow night we'll devote an hour to thinking about how we can do right in this terrible time that Haiti is suffering so badly once again. So.
Well, I'm going to tune in for sure. Absolutely.
Well, absolutely great. And because I these matters of conscience, that's what brings us together. Because
Hmm.
we are conscientious people. We have empathy, but we don't have his solutions. And that's what we're going to get by working together and keeping the faith and peeling back the layers one day at a time. Thanks,
Thank you,
Professor.
John.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, chat room, and good night. I'll see you all tomorrow night. And remember, Professor Hamamoto, when's your next show, by the way?
Oh, it'll be Tuesday, next Tuesday. I do Tuesdays and Thursdays.
And what time is that? Oh,
That's 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and that would be what, 6 o'clock Eastern.
okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
Professor. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
John. Okay, bye-bye.